I'm Stephanie Scheller. Welcome back to the Business Owner Spotlight, your opportunity to get the chance to listen to incredible business owners that, let's be honest, may have never gotten a chance to get in front of you. Now, the cool thing about today's, I want to say podcast, but it's not really a podcast, but cool thing about today's episode is that you actually do have the chance to hear from this guy regularly. So, Jake, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Stephanie, for having me.
So you do something a little bit different because you are kind of a public figure. You do talk to people, and you're a financial advisor, which most financial advisors are scared to death to talk to people for some reason. So why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do different, and maybe explain my comment about people can actually hear you more often than just today.
Sure, yeah. So I am indeed a financial planner. I've been a financial planner for about 5 years now. I help individuals, small business owners with financial management, money-making decision, all that kind of stuff. The unique thing about what I do is that my niche is millennials. So I'm really trying to hone in on young working professionals in those early wealth accumulation years, the time period when we need the most financial help, but we can't usually get it. So I have a podcast show, which is out on all platforms that you can listen to podcasts, and it's called Jake of All Trades. And the concept of the show is bringing financial content and financial education to a younger demographic that normally wouldn't be able to get access to that. And also by using the platform of a podcast, I can make it relatable so that it's not in financial jargon. People aren't intimidated by it. And it's just about stuff that maybe they're embarrassed to ask questions about, but it's not their fault because we didn't learn about this stuff in high school or college, right? If
right. I can solve for X.
Yeah. So if you didn't intentionally go to study it, like you're going to miss out on a lot of this stuff. So I have found through my work as a financial planner that my passion is really dovetails on helping people manage their money as well as providing a financial education program.
So you went for the hard one. Like everyone, all the financial planners and advisors I know, it's not that they won't talk to the millennials, but they like don't target them because these guys oftentimes don't have tons of money to be like, hey, let me pay a financial planner. So what made you like be like, hey, let me hit my head against a wall and target millennials?
So it was kind of like I hit my head against the wall going the traditional route. Oh. And so because I was young entering the profession, a lot of older clients did not trust me to manage their $1 million 401ks. They were just like, no, absolutely not. Right. And so I found so many stumbling blocks, and I found that the work wasn't very fulfilling for me. It was like, I don't really enjoy going out and trying to meet these older working professionals because we don't relate on anything. So then, I did some self-reflecting and I was like, all right, what do I really want to do? And I love helping people with finances, and I'm young, so why not come up with a business model that I can still be paid, but I can also reach that audience, that demographic that really needs my help the most. So I just have now built this model on affordable financial planning, and it's comprehensive in nature, so it's not like we're taking any shortcuts, but it's interactive, comprehensive financial planning that's affordable for young professionals.
Nice. I'm over here trying to like write you down word for word because which I don't understand because we're recording. I can always go back and listen to it, but for some reason I feel this urge to write it all down.
It's so good,
right? Exactly. There, we're gonna go with that one. So you're focusing on the millennials. You obviously ran into an obstacle. How long have you been doing this again?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so you got some time under your belt. You're trustable now. You have a very trustworthy face, at least.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. It's the beard. It's like the beards. You should see my husband, right? Okay, so you've been doing this for a little while. Obviously, shortly after starting, you ran into some obstacles. What are some of the other obstacles? Because anyone who makes it past 5 is what we, or anyone who makes it past 3 is what we consider successful in today's day and age, which is mind-boggling, right? Because you made it to 5, which is another big milestone. What are some of the obstacles you ran into, and what did you do to get past them that made you successful?
So that is a great question. And I love to poke holes in anything that I do because that's the best part of success is finding all of your weaknesses. So I found throughout this process initially, that it's very difficult, and even still now, it's really difficult to sell a service. And you will be familiar with this because that's
Yeah.
what you do as well. And so you're selling a service, you're selling an idea, you're selling a concept, but there's nothing tangible. Like they may receive a written financial plan, they may have an online platform where they're building their plan, but really when I'm engaging with a prospective client, they're buying on an idea. And me selling that idea has been really challenging and continues to be challenging. And even more difficult is that I'm selling an idea to a generation that's inherently skeptical already, right? Because we're already like, we've been through the financial crisis. We've seen our parents lose their jobs or, default on credit cards or homes. And so all of that stuff is really scary. And then we see people in my position who are out there taking advantage of people.
Right.
And that only adds to the skepticism. So I definitely believe that has been my biggest struggle and continues to be my biggest struggle. But what I have found that works is that you give stuff away. And that is one of the reasons why I have the podcast, is that people need to hear my content. They need to hear what I'm talking about and get some value out of it before they're willing to buy.
I think that's across the board. That's kind of where I've been talking with people recently about how the sales environment has changed, right? It used to be if you had good advertising, you could get the deals. And then it became, okay, if you have good advertising and slick sales guys, you can get the deals. Now it's if you have, good advertising and good sales guys, not slick anymore. You can't be slick. You have to be good. You have to care for people, right? But it's about the content because we have so much available. So one question from me to you is, how do you... There's so many options, right? I can go to Susie Orman. I can go to all these people to get financial advice from. How do you set yourself up as that trustworthy person to listen to so that people feel like they actually can? I mean, obviously it's nice for a millennial to listen to a millennial, but how do you set yourself up as a trusted person and not a BSer?
Another great question. So I guess one of the ways that you have to do that is you have to be licensed and credentialed, right? So I do have a certified financial planner designation, which takes years to get. So I made sure that I got that under my belt so that I had sort of, if you can call it a justification for what I do. But, so that's a good designation to have, and I'm licensed. But really, I think the most important thing is when I talk to people, I'm talking to them as a person. And there is no shame and there is no intimidation factor. So if I'm showing up to a meeting with a prospective client, I'm not wearing a 3-piece suit. We're not meeting in a formal boardroom. That's just not the type of environment that sparks conversation. And this is one of the most intimate conversations you can have with someone other than your therapist, because I'm going to ask you to divulge some pretty sensitive information. And so we need to have an environment and a relationship built on trust and comfort. And so by providing them with content, by having designations, by talking to them like people and treating them as individuals, I have found that to be successful.
So I know that sometimes people are like, yeah, but how do you, we see enough people, they kind of blur together, right? So how do you continue to focus on that, just the person in front of you, and just like stay in that moment instead of like going off? And especially as you get educated, I see a lot of people who get educated and stop listening because they're like, oh, I know what they're going to say. And they start predicting. And so then they see their sales tank, right? It's this curve that tends to happen, right? And only half of them make it back up. So how do you stay focused on the person in front of you?
So every meeting that I ever have, I never have an agenda. Every time I enter a meeting, it's always driven first and foremost by the client and what their objective is for the engagement. And then the second piece of that is I have this mantra, which is like old school, but it works really well. And it's, you use the number of ears you have in proportion, so you have one mouth. Let me think of how to say this in an eloquent way. So you use these in proportion to the number that you have over this. So I have one of these and two of these. I need to use these twice as much as I need to use this. It's like a silly little thing, but it helps remind me that I need to shut up and listen, because it very often happens that a client is talking and I will start to get that urge to start saying something and answering the question before they finish, and then they take it in a totally different direction. And so I've stepped on my toes plenty of times doing that. And part of doing this for a while now, it's helped me understand, okay, you need to pause and you need to be listening. You don't have to already have an answer as soon as they stop talking.
Right. I think that's one of the issues we run into just in general today is this whole idea of I got this figured out. Like, yeah. Okay. Stop talking so I can answer it. And I even catch myself doing that. And I know better. It's like, I'm sure you know better too, right? I still catch myself doing it. And sometimes you're just sitting there going, oops, like my bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about how you got to where you are. Where do you want to go? I mean, are you the next Susie Orman, except obviously male? I mean,
well, let's see. So I've had people say like, do you want to be Dave Ramsey? Which
right.
I am not a fan of a lot of the things that he talks about. So a lot of the advice I give is very different from both Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey. I also have like 1/50th of the following that they have. But eventually, I just want to be the kind of go-to voice for millennial demographic when they're seeking financial assistance. And I just want to be helpful to them in whatever stage they may be in that time period, because a lot of millennials are not married yet. They don't have, kids. They don't have careers just yet. They're focused on travel and a free lifestyle. And so I want to be that voice for them and that sort of resource that they can go back to all the time. And also, I just want to have fun. Like, I love to have fun. And when we meet, I want you to be jazzed about personal finance as much as I am. And I want you to be excited about the future journey that we're going to take together. Because when I meet with my clients, I always tell them I hope, and my hope for you is that this is the only financial planning engagement you have to have, because we're going to grow together throughout the entire process.
That's awesome. I'm curious, and you can tell me if you can answer this one or not, but most of the financial planners I talk to, or financial advisors, planners, they're all scared to death to do interviews. They're scared to do appearances. They don't like public speaking. It seems to attract a very specific breed of people for the most part. And most of them sit there and they go, oh my gosh, Steph, there's so many, like, I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I cannot do this. It's like they sit there and they allow themselves to get bogged down in all of the, and there's a reason that all of that has come about, right? We've got the Wolf of Wall Street type stories, right? There's a reason for all those rules.
Yep.
What was it? How did you, like, you're the first one I bet who's like, yeah, well, let's go do the online thing. Let's have a podcast. Let's do all these things that everyone else sits there and goes, oh, I can't do it. How did you decide what was the story behind that? How did you decide you were going to go do that? And how did you get approval for that? Because I'm just dying of curiosity here.
Yeah. So you are totally right too. There are so a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of financial advisors have like a big brother type of situation. So they have a broker dealer or something that oversees all of what they do. And I have that as well. And usually the big brother in that scenario is the one who's kind of keeps you in control and puts down the pressure on you if you're doing something they don't like. But right. I just don't have that type of personality. I just have the type of personality that I gotta break the mold a little bit. And so I knew that if I'm going to build a business around reaching millennials, I need to be on the platforms and visually where they most go. And one of the places they like to go is online. And they also love to listen to podcasts. And so it took a lot of work, but I have a fantastic broker dealer, and they have been nothing but accommodating, because I'm one of the only advisors in our network that's doing a podcast. I don't even know. Sometimes we're both like scratching our heads like, can I do this? Is that okay? Like, I don't really know. So I always kind of pushed the boundaries just a little bit, because I felt like it was really important to do so. And also, this is a lot of what I talk about on my podcast and in my blog is education focused. So I very rarely will ever give advice, and I would never give specific advice to anyone. It's really general education-based planning and philosophies and planning strategies and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. And, I think I want to make a point for our listeners there. You said a couple things that jumped out at me is first of all, where is the audience, and went there. That's huge. And I see so many people who, and not just where was the audience and let's go there, but there was no like, oh, well, here's an obstacle. I guess I'm not meant to go there, and we'll go off another direction. Like, that's to me huge, because you see, I mean, like talking to these business owners, of course, I ask everybody who's the best business owner you know, so I don't get a lot of those people in these interviews, but I talk to those guys all the time, and they're sitting there and they don't push past. And I tell everyone there is no plan B. Like, what do you want to do? Go do it. And I like the be where your audience is. So I just wanted to reiterate that in case any of our audience was just tooling along and totally missed it. So we're so blowing through time here, but I love asking this question, and it's funny. So the question is, I'll tell you and you can think on it. The question is, what's your best piece of advice for another business owner out there? And it's funny because when I said, I'm going to ask all these guys this question, I thought I'd get the same piece of advice again and again. And we're on 50 some odd of these, and I've only gotten the same piece of advice a couple times. So no pressure. But what's your best piece of advice for other business owners?
All right. So I'm going to throw 3 things at you. Okay. First thing is create a brand for yourself and your work. Find whatever that is and create it. So for me personally, my podcast has worked very well as a branding technique, and now they can associate my work with that, and that has worked wonderfully. The second thing I would say is find a niche. So I heard that a lot when I was first starting in this industry, and I was like, well, should I go after accountants? Should I go after doctors? Like, what do I have in common? Find a niche, and find not only that niche, but be passionate about that niche, because to me, someone can sense when you're truly, authentically passionate about something and when you're just, And then I think the third thing would be consistent. So don't, stop doing workshops or webinars or presentations because you don't get anyone to show up. I don't know how many times I've hosted a presentation and I didn't have anybody show up. And that just happens. But as long as you're consistent, eventually your name's going to catch on. And as long as you're good and passionate about what you're doing and you're consistent with the delivery of all of that, that's going to be, it's going to work. That's just the nature of the beast. So those are the 2 things.
I think all of those are really good. I mean, like and you're so right. The whole consistency thing, I tell everyone, you got to do something for minimum 90 days before you know whether or not it's working. And oftentimes you got to do it way longer than, like, if you only do it once in 90 days, like, how are you going to get a true gauge? I did the same thing as you, tons of presentations, 2-3 people in the room, maybe. I remember one presentation I did, and it was the first one that I'd put on, I'd hosted, I tried to fill the room. The only people in the room were like my friends who came to support me. It was like,
Yes, I know what you're talking about. It's the exact same thing. I'm like, wait, I invited all of you on Facebook and you all came, which I'm thankful for, but I can't take any of you as clients. You know what I mean?
It's terrible. But the more I've done it now, when I say, hey, I'm going to do this, people are like, ooh, okay, let's go. But it took a while, right? I'm almost 4 years in on these front of the room presentations and trainings and stuff. So I think all 3 of those were really awesome. Jake, thank you so much for taking time to join me. This was a fun interview.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much for letting me join you. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, for our listeners out there, for you guys who are watching, listening, be inspired by this. I think this was a cool story. I mean, how do you listen to that and not see, maybe you guys don't know as much as I know about the financial planning industry, but man, he's been up against some tough stuff. And to see it, that to me is just super, super exciting. So go out there, guys. And I believe, and I think I end all of them the same way, I believe we have the potential for greatness, each and every one of us, but only some of us will do the effort necessary to live up to that greatness. So the question is that going to be you? Make it a great week.